Righto, here's the thing. I've just spent 2 weeks filming in Tasmania with DustEmUp, and in that time we did the west coast, we did the east coast, we did some of the most awesome terrain you can do. It was probably about 2,200 k's all up, but that's not the point. That included the Balfour track, of which there was at least 6 kilometres of water that was up or near or over the bonnet, okay? And we're not just talking about water, we're talking about gritty water, full of mud, especially when you're following other vehicles. That's what you get. There was a 40-knot wind the day we did the North Head, just above Bridport. That means sand blown into absolutely everything. I guess the important thing here to realise is that some damage could have been done during that trip. I doubt it very much, but that's not the point. During that trip, we had an 80 series drop, a very minor gearbox seal. It took on 6 litres of muddy water, chewed out 2nd and 4th gear, a new gearbox in other words, all the synchros went. And we also had another camera vehicle that chewed out a clutch. Same deal, just water and mud ingression under really hard circumstances. I have to go now, I'm in Melbourne at Terrain Tamer headquarters in their workshop. I have to get back to Brisbane. That's 1,700 k's of pretty much highway driving. That's when the damage occurs. The first thing you need to do is to get it into your head that good oil is the cheapest insurance your machine can have. A gearbox is $3,500, an oil change on the gearbox, nothing compared to that. Even using the best oil on earth, Aussie's own Penrite. So I am now going to drain everything out of the truck except the brake fluid, because I know that's all right. I'm going to change the filters. I'm going to grease up the shackles. I'm going to spray some of my favourite P26 on the leaf springs because it'll just soften up the ride home and get some of that sand out. And basically make sure that my truck gets home in as good a possible condition as it can. So there you have it, easy. Now all we've got to do is the work. Come on, I'll show you. You know, I reckon it's impossible to do this without getting dirty, and maybe that's why we're just all big kids at heart, hey? We kind of enjoy getting dirty. Hey, I hit it, Matt. It should be said at this stage that the truck is hot. Okay, straight off the barge from Tasmania to Terrain Tamer, 20 k's of Melbourne traffic, everything's nice and warm. Every mechanic has his own little tricks. This probably doesn't work for everyone. I've never had a problem with it. Tiny little bit of silicone, any sort of silicone, just on the upper part of the thread. The last thing you want to do is get it inside the motor where it can block up a gallery or something. But that, on a drain plug, stops it from leaking and it keeps it in there. And the other thing about doing it this way is you don't have to put 9 miles of torque on it. You know, you just tighten it up and then it'll set in place. That'll make it easier to get out next time and won't stuff the thread. Gee, that's a nifty device. I like that. Cool. All my life, I've used Penrite oil, you know, all through the motorbike testing days. No matter who was sponsoring things, it was Penrite going in the machine, just like certain drag races I know. And I've always used Terrain Tamer filters. So we're going to splash a bit of oil into this filter. We want to lube up the rubber, and we also want it to have a little bit of oil in it so when it kicks off it doesn't have to dry pump as much. But both Penrite and Terrain Tamer are Australian companies owned by Australian families. That's not why I use them because they're the best, but it kind of makes it nice, doesn't it? For what it's worth, this is another Roothy rule. I don't care what the manual says, you never ever put clean oil in something and don't change the filter, okay? All that change the filter every second oil change, who are they trying to kid? Would you run your nice fresh Penrite through someone else's dirty socks? No. It's not necessary to tighten the filter too much. Give it about a half a turn from where it touches down. And once again, anything I do here is the world according to Roothy. Doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you or your truck. We'll stick some fresh oil in that later. In the meantime, there's all that other stuff to change underneath here. And we'll see if we can find some water. That'll be interesting. That's all right, I'll go digging. If there'd been a major influx of water through the axle seals, we'd see it here. It'd actually come out because the oil would be floating on top of it. What this proves is what I kind of knew, because I've been feeling the axles every time I do a stretch of highway, and they're lovely and cold, that the new dual lip seals, Terrain Tamer dual lip seals, are the best thing since sliced bread, because water hasn't got in. While that's draining, we'll kick off the greasing. Beautiful, red. You know why? So you can see it when it comes out. For general greasing, shackles, steering linkages, stuff like that, the extreme pressure grease is the go. Did you see the water and sand that just shot out of there? Now that could have stayed in there like grinding paste all the way back to Queensland. Every one of those bumps up the Newell Highway. Oh no. This is the most important thing of all. Not necessarily the front end, but certainly those rear universal joints, because as you'll see eventually, this truck was buried over its door sills in sand a couple of times, and I was driving out. So that means the universal joints have just sat there in mud and water on the Balfour, spinning away, and then in sand, you know. And if you have a grease nipple on your universal, this is the best way to go. Oh, see that? We got water. Dirty black grease. Just a hint of sand in it. So by squeezing that out and replacing it, we've pretty much ensured that these bushes, which are good bushes to start with, stay good. A little trick here for you other leaf spring people out there. P26, okay? It's a lubricant and it's also a freeing up agent, and a spray of this on your leaf springs, it won't stay there forever, but on the road on the way home, I'm going to be glad every time I hit a bump. I love this stuff, it's just awesome. Cool. To make it easy on myself, and because it's the best thing on earth, I use the 80-90 in my diffs, gearbox and transfer. This is the best oil you can buy. It's a premium mineral oil, and it's proven itself. 1,000,000 Ks in MILO, 40,000 in MILO2. Best way for me to access the transfer fillers and the drop plugs is to pull off the bash plate. That's part of being a modified truck, you know, the holes are in the wrong place. I'll just knock into that. Okay, this will be interesting. This is where we get to see if there's any water in the transfer. So far it's looking really good. There's nothing coming out of the filler hole. Always a good sign. Nothing but pure oil. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Dave from Terrain Tamer who built this transfer. And I'd never say that to his face in case he's got a fat head. There's nothing nicer than seeing clean penrite come out of something after it's been through the rubbish this has been through. I hope the gearbox is the same. Ye old favourite, Penrite 8090 Premium Mineral Gear Oil. Back in. You know why I'm putting it back in? Because it did such a good job last time and the time before and the time before that, and time immemorial, 20 years worth for me. While I'm here, I'm having a bit of a look at everything else too, just to make sure, before we move further down the back of the truck. Oh, there you go. That's not clean. Hasn't got water in it, but you can see it's done a lot of work, which kind of makes sense because the rear diff would have done 85% of the travelling recently. But look at that, when it gets down to the last few drops, it's still relatively green and clean, which is kind of nice to see. There's no water in there. Once again, double lip axle seals. Now, just something here for you guys who go hard, especially you guys with Nissans. This is the plain 80W90, okay? There's nothing plain about it, premium mineral oil. But this is what I choose to use with my lockers, okay? These are E-lockers. It's kind of funny this, isn't it? Like, that's a Harrop product, and Harrop comes out of Melbourne too. So here I am with a Terrain Tamer truck running Penrite oils with Harrop diffs in it. It's all out of Melbourne. And someone said nothing good ever comes out of Melbourne. Hey, how wrong were they? There must have been a Queenslander. All right, so plain mineral oil. If you've got a limited slip diff, you use a limited slip variety. Other than that, if you're stuck, it doesn't really matter. You'll get out of the bush with oil in there. This is one of the other advantages of doing a full check. I knew I had an airbag issue. Now I can see what it is. It's stuffed. Must have copped a hammering. The whole truck copped a hammering, but so far, thanks to good servicing, good lubrication and great parts, that's been the only issue. And that's not the airbag's fault, that's the operator's fault. Let's find him and give him a flogging. On the way through, part of this service, and it's going to make the truck so much more fun to drive, I'm lubricating all the moving parts with P26. So in this case, it's the handbrake cable, which most people will tell you doesn't work on a Toyota, so what's the point? But at least if I want to pretend it's working, it's going to feel nice and smooth. And I'll do the gear linkage, and I'll make sure I hit the clutch linkage as well. Just smooths it out, makes it nice after all that crunchy mud in it. First thing I did, before I drained the oil out of the motor, was to pull the top plug, just so that when it drained out, it rushed out, didn't sort of gooble out slowly. And the idea is when it rushes out, it takes all the rubbish with it. I don't think there was much rubbish in there, to be honest, but whatever there was came out. In Queensland, I always run the 20/60 weight anyway. Winter down south, you might go for a slightly skinnier oil, but this is my favourite oil. I run it in everything from my 1972 Norton to my 12HT. It's beautiful. So there you have it, fresh Penrite, one end to the other, lots of lovely grease in there, uni's done, everything's sweet as. You know what that means, don't you? That means trouble-free cruise home, and when I get home, the truck's going to be in perfect condition. Now, I've said this before, but good oil, best insurance on earth. 1800k drive coming up, and we're just going to whiz it in. All freshly greased, oiled, lubricated up. I might even have a shower myself. See you back in Queensland.